Hello, my beautiful mamas out there. Welcome to Fun Rich Mom. I am Mitch Blackford. So glad that you are here because I'm telling you, I just got totally inspired and uplifted by this conversation with Lori Templeton that we are about to launch into for you. She has a company called Momprenista. I just love the name. It just gives you just everything rolled into one. You can just picture it. Mom, entrepreneur, fashionista, lifestyle, all the things. And she is a lady who has 4 kids, not 8, 4. I should just do one hand for those of you watching. 4 kids, has homeschooled them. And along with her husband, they have built multiple companies into the millions of dollars. And now she has created this system where she can model that to moms. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes when I look out into the world to find someone to follow, an example to model off after, it's not usually the moms out there that I'm seeing having the big success. It's usually someone that doesn't have kids or someone that has kids, but maybe a supportive spouse at home that is taking care of them. And so it can be frustrating when you're in this role and you're thinking, I want to go out there. I want to do more. How do I do that? And she has figured it out and she's put it together so that she can pass that message on to other moms out there that are just wanting more out of their life. So we're going to get into her story. We're going to find out what it is that she's doing. And at the end, she's going to give you a little gift. So make sure you stick around for that. Let's get started. So Lori Templeton, thank you for joining us. And, thank you just for being this bright, shining light and having grace, because I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there for everyone. I was late to my interview with her and she was on time. So this woman has so much grace right off the bat. I'm so thankful. So we know we're going to have a good time though, right?
Right. It's not a big deal. Life happens. So we just figure it out and roll with it.
Exactly. So Lori, you have a brand called Momprenista, which I love that name. I think I just get it. You get the whole package within that one word. How did you come up with that?
So I've been traveling and speaking for a lot of years. And as my speaking became more entrepreneurial, more business based, even at events that weren't that, I would usually have questions. Even if I was at a school speaking, I would have teachers come up afterwards and say, all right, so you're a mom and you're an entrepreneur and you do this and you do that. Like, how do you do it? Right. And so then I was at an event and these 3 women came up afterwards and they said, so you're like this super mom / mompreneur / fashionista, like all rolled up into one. Can you teach us how to do that? Can you teach us like what you do to do everything that you do? And I was like, first of all, fashionista, like, I'm dressed up because I'm here in front of you, right? Like there's a reason. Hair's on point. I have on 5-inch heels. Like there's a plan here.
Come
You don't
see
see
me
the
at home
yogurt,
is a different story.
right? Yogurt in my hair, bananas, oral gel, like, all that you're not seeing right now. And I used to have a hard time with like, people calling me super mom, and because I feel like that's a very comparative term that we use. And I don't think we need to be comparing ourselves to one another because we're all on very different journeys. And so, I kind of balked at that for a long time, but then I just really sat down and I said, all right, what am I supposed to be doing with this, God? And so we just kind of mashed everything together. And that is where Momprenista came from. So mompreneur and fashionista and, their comment of being all rolled up into one and teach us how you do it. That's where it came from.
I love that. So you mentioned all of the different things that you were doing. Can you give us a little bit of background of how did you end up speaking at these places and what were the businesses that you built and who you are at home as well? Like, how did this all come to be?
So I've actually been traveling and speaking since I was 16 years old. I'm put a big trigger warning on this. So I was in an abusive relationship as a teenager. And then I had a teacher encourage me to tell my story. And she was my speech teacher. And so she made me do an informative speech. She didn't make me, but she gave me the choice, right? To do an informative speech on dating violence in her class. She said, I don't want you to tell your story. I don't want you to do anything. I just want you to give an informative speech, which means you have to go and do the research. You have to give me the statistics, all this stuff. Girl, I went to the sheriff's office. This was before, this was in like 1990. I'm dating myself here. This was in like 1995, 96. Okay. So like I'm old.
Uh-huh.
So this was pre-internet, big, being everywhere, like all the things. And so there were no statistics. I couldn't just Google anything and stuff come up, right? So like I did hard research on this. But what
You
I
had to do like
found,
microfiche
yes,
on Nexus,
exactly,
right?
exactly. Oh my goodness, yes. Um,
I'm right there with you.
yes, yes. And so anyway, but what I found was statistics that were saying, 1 in 4 students would be involved in an abusive, 1 in 4 girls, I'll say girls at this point, would be involved in an abusive dating relationship before high school graduation. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so then I gave my presentation and all of my peers are sitting in the classroom. And as I'm saying things and giving signs and symptoms of abuse and, people are going, oh, like starting to put the puzzle together in their head, realizing what they've witnessed in my relationship because everything was very public. Right. And so, then she said, I have a friend who teaches an all girls health class over in another county. Do you want to go and speak to her health class? And I was like, I get out of school. And she said, yeah. I said,
Okay.
I am there. I'm there. And so that's when I started speaking, and I went, and that was the first time I put my story with the statistics that I had found. And then the conversations that came after that, what I found as I continued speaking, because that health teacher said, oh, you got to hear this girl's story. And that one said, oh, you have to hear this girl's story. And so what happened with that, and this was in rural Southwest Virginia, Northeast Tennessee. And what I was finding was that it was more like 1 in 3 to 1 in 2 girls were experiencing this. And then when we started adding in the guys' classes, I'm realizing that not only is it going on there, like the girls are being manipulative and abusive toward the guys and not even realizing it. So anyway, that started the speaking journey. That started the formation of my nonprofit. And I was traveling and speaking and still do travel and speak. And so our ministry just kind of morphed. We went from speaking in schools to speaking at parent conferences to speaking at women's conferences. Then as my husband and I were high school sweethearts, and we got married and started a business the first year that we got married. I do not recommend that to newlyweds, especially if you don't know what you're doing. And we had no clue what we were doing.
Right.
But we started our first business the first year we got married, and it tanked. It was not good. And so
Talk about putting your marriage to the fire, huh?
right. We really put things out there to the test right there. But as things kind of morphed into, learning more about business, and I spent a lot of time in executive nonprofit management, and kind of worked a career up through there, and then spent time in various other areas. And so then my husband and I felt like God was telling us to step back into entrepreneurship. We had owned several businesses. We had sold businesses. And so we felt like God was calling us back into something. And so we stepped into owning a construction company. And but most of the time we would look at each other and be like, why are we here again? What are we doing here? And so you had 2 people that had like the, ideas, the sales and the experience from the background. And then you had me that had, the strategic management and marketing side of things, but neither one of us still really had a lot of business management, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so we get into this business, it's growing rapidly. We're looking at each other, we're scratching our heads and going, what do we do? And so at that time, I had a 5-year-old and I was pregnant with our second. And so now it's a joke that we add businesses and add babies at the same time. But so, then I'm doing the mom thing, right? Like, so my speaking career and my ministry that grew, and we're traveling all over the US speaking. I'm taking my first child with me. Like, he's 3 weeks old. He's in the car. We're heading, from Tennessee to Kentucky to talk. And that wasn't a big deal. And he was on the road, we're Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, like we're everywhere. And he's just in the car with me, and it's not a big deal. And then you have 2 kids and then you have another business. And it's like, how do I figure this out? So I'm constantly figuring out how things work. Um, and trusting while I was on the road with my first, I was trusting God big time with like 7 degrees of separation kind of deal. Like, all right, God, if you've called me to this and I'm supposed to be doing this, you're going to have to find childcare for this kid who's with me while I'm there. And so it would be like, hey, I have this friend who her kid goes to a Mom's Day Out program there in Kentucky. If you want to take your child, that'd be great. I mean, awesome. Cool.
Oh, wow.
And so it always worked out, but I'm like praying big, heavy prayers. So anyway, so I'm wearing the Supermom badge really hard because we have not only our ministry that we're running, and I'm still traveling and speaking at this time a lot. I'm still on the road a lot at this point. 2020
And this
slowed us
ministry
down.
is still with abusive relationships?
So we were doing everything. I actually, God grew that massively. We had over 25 speakers that would come in and share their real life stories. So I trained people to tell their stories in a way that was very engaging and created authenticity. And so we had people that would travel and speak and share their stories. And that was everything from relationship abuse to bullying to eating disorders to suicide prevention and awareness to alcoholism, teen pregnancy, financial literacy, like all of it. And so, I had felons that spoke for me. That was a big joke. And I had a friend and she was like, oh man, he's going to get his record expunged. Then I can't say I know a felon anymore. That's not cool. But, so God really brought redeemed people to us and then let me teach them how to share their stories, which led to them having a lot of speaking careers as well. But anyway, so we started, our business and had another baby, and I'm trying to figure out what in the world is going on. Right. So I'm with kids all day during the day. I'm still running the ministry. I'm still speaking, and I'm working all hours of the night trying to keep up with all the business, because that's what happens when you start a business, right? You think you're supposed to be in doing all the things. And that's the card I was playing, hard and heavy. And so we ended up hiring a business consultant that said, because we said, look, we can't keep up this pace. This is not going to work. Something about this isn't right. And so he says, you have to schedule everything in your life. And I said, I'm sorry, you're on crack. Because that is not good. How in the world, And
you're like, babies, remember? Babies.
Exactly. And so, and we'll talk about that in a second, but that's a lot of where the Momprenista brand was born out of. But anyway, so this business consultant, got us on the right track in a lot of ways. But the other thing that he did was help us realize more about how we can buy and sell businesses and step into more stuff. And then we got connected with an investor group. And so, that's the joke, is we have babies and we have more businesses. So we do mergers and acquisitions as well. And we are business consultants helping people. I say I work in the offline world and now the online world too. And I stayed out of the online world on purpose for a long time because it seemed very fake. And seemed like, people were trying to tell you how to do business who had never done business before. So we come in, to things, and we're helping these families really take back their lives. And that's our passion is, we see business owners who were like us, who are living that life with the overwhelm. They had quit their 9 to 5 and traded it for a 24/7, and they had no clue how to work their way out of that. And so, as we started seeing us being able to help families take back their lives and kids get their parents back, we started realizing that that's really where we wanted to focus our efforts. And so my husband and I both have masterminds that we help people in, respective industries and things like that. But that's where the Momprenista brand was born out of, is because what I started seeing were moms, especially in the online world, and especially after 2020. I'll say that. So 2020 changed a lot of things, right? And so what we saw in 2020 was a drastic increase of women starting businesses. Normally, we only see about 20 21 to 22% of women starting businesses. And what we saw in most of the business applications filed was about 49% of those were filed by women. And that was like a 10 million plus increase in new businesses over
Ooh.
2021 and 2022. So that's a bunch of boring facts. But anyway, so and what we're seeing out of that is that women want to be able to, like, they got this glimpse, I think, in 2020 of like, oh, can I stay home and maybe homeschool my kids and maybe be, even if I'm not homeschooling, be very present in their lives, be that homeroom mom, go on those field trips, like, can I actually, does that work? I'm forced into it and I'm getting a glimpse, but I don't know how to make this work. I don't know how to put all the pieces in all the boxes to make it work. And I think that's what women were seeing with me is we were homeschooling before it was cool. We were doing all the things. So I was homeschooling, I was running businesses, I was baking with fresh whole grains, I grind my own flour, and we're traveling together, and I'm running multi-million-dollar businesses, and people are going, how do you do it?
How?
Because I just got thrown into this and I can't do anything. Or, I started doing Mary Kay, but I don't know how to do it. And, so I think there's this big letdown in the world of just like, they go to somewhere for advice, which is what I did, right? I went to this consultant for advice and he's like, all right, let me tell you what to do. Write down everything in your life. And I was like, dude, you're crazy. like, you know, and so I had to sit with God and say, like, what is it that is supposed to be right about this, if that makes sense? You know,
Mhm.
He's saying that this is the direction we need to go, but you're going to have to make sense of this for me in order for me to actually be able to put this into practice in my life. Because, I mean, we're moms, right? How in the world
Yeah.
can we fathom writing down and sticking to a schedule for every hour of our lives with, for me, in my case, I have 4 kids, 4 little personalities that are
Yes.
changing the game on the regular, plus my husband, plus me, plus parents that I take care of, like what in the
Mhm.
world? And so the Holy Spirit said, he's right. You need to figure out how to make it work for you, though. You have to figure out how to make it work in the mom world and for your life, and ignore the fact of what he's coming from in this area over here. And I said, all right, fine. So I sit down and I developed this whole method. It's called the sync method. And so you sync your life up. And when you start doing that, it changes the game drastically in your family, in your marriage, just the peace that it changes in your home and in your business. And so it has been a game changer, and it's really been perfected over the past few years. And so as I started sharing this with our clients offline, and then as I started sharing it in masterminds and stuff that I was a part of, people were going, oh my goodness, you need to teach this. This is amazing. Can you tell me how to do this? And so it's just been kind of this explosive thing. And so we added that, and I took our business consulting and then our sync method, and kind of develop the Momprenista brand to actually step in and help moms be who they were called to be. Like, God created us to be more than we realize. Ephesians 2:10 says that we were all created for, to do his works, a purpose in his works. And that means that we get to discover that and rise up into it. That's what the Hebrew there means when you dig all the way back. And so when we actually get to that point of going, all right, what's my purpose? Who am I? And what am I supposed to do with it? Then you need the tools to be able to get the traction and move forward, so that you're not just sitting there on the hamster wheel, rolling around and around and around, not knowing which direction to go in.
Yeah. And I love how you keyed in on the fact that you had this business consultant and he's saying, okay, you need to do this. And you're like, but that doesn't work. I'm a mom. And I think that's such a key thing, because I know I've been there. I'm an entrepreneur, right? I'm a mom. I'm homeschooling. You do all the things. You have the activities you're doing, all the things. And you're looking at most business people to model. And a lot of them are either younger, no kids, or guys, and have a supportive spouse at home that takes care of the kids. And you're just like, that schedule that they have available to them is different than the schedule that I have available to me. And the priorities that they have, or and not to say that their family isn't important. It's just they have a different flexibility. And I think that sometimes we can use that as an excuse as moms, like, well, I can't create as much success, or I can't go as far because I'm way down. And I
Right.
don't think that that's the truth. It's just finding a different method of doing that. And I love that what you're doing here basically is you're presenting a model of this to the world, that you can be a mom and you can do this. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be a bad mom and that you're going to be missing out on the things and that you're going to be momming out of mom guilt because you're choosing business or motherhood. And then you feel resentful because of whichever choice you make, you're ignoring the other, right? And that's such a strong thing. And here you're showing it is possible, and it doesn't have to look the way that we always see it. It can look a different way. I
Yeah.
like that a lot.
I think the thing that we don't understand is, and one of the other big components that we're big on in our programs, is understanding that, we've got two parts to our mind. We have our subconscious and we have our conscious. And the subconscious is what's bigger, right? That's your thought storage system. That's where you're pulling everything from. And so that has to get fixed in a lot of ways, because a lot of us have back trauma, compound trauma, that we have to heal from. And we don't realize that when we're standing there in that moment of overwhelm and we snap at our kids, or we snap at our husband, or we snap at an employee, whatever that is, there's actually a trauma root to that. And so we don't realize that if we would deal with that, then communication would get so much better. And so when we actually started putting things in place for our family, and I started going, all right, I'm going to write all this stuff down, but I don't know what in the world I'm doing here, God. You're going to have to show me, right? He started showing me that, like, the realization of not everyone has your trauma. Not everyone has your family, right? Not everyone has your husband and his trauma that you have to deal with, right? So everybody's dynamics are different. And if this is a system that's going to work, it has to be able to be flexible and work for everyone. And so that's really how it's been created, is to be able to be flexible and implement it into any family dynamic, any business dynamic, so that you can actually apply it to you and you're comfortable with it. And hopefully it eliminates most of the mom guilt, but I don't know in this world if we will ever fully eliminate mom guilt. That's just, I think we're sent so many messages this day and time that there's always going to be something that we're like, oh man, did I miss out on that or whatever? So, but it's really important to me that women understand that this isn't a perfectionism model. This isn't a do it my way model. This is a put something in place so that you understand what things look like for your family, so that you're taking stock of your life and everything in it, including past trauma. And we're dealing with that and healing from it. And we're moving forward to figure out, where we actually want to go in our life, because God has a destiny for us that is aligned with our purpose, and we can actually design our lives to fall in line with that. And this isn't prosperity gospel. It's just, I don't do prosperity gospel, but it's just truth in the terms of, like, there is something carved into you that only you can do. And people are waiting for you to step into it. And people's eternities matter, and the legacy that they get to leave for their family and other people matter for you to step into who you were called to be. And so getting this dialed in matters. I don't care if you're a plumber or a Mary Kay person or a life coach, like, it matters to get all of this dialed in. So
Yeah. And then so that people kind of, I mean, you've gone through your journey, and on the top of it, it just sounds like, man, she's just had this going from the beginning. Yeah, their first business failed, but like then they just figured it out along the way and everything seems smooth. Obviously, I know that wasn't the case.
no.
But can you share maybe some of the tougher struggles and how you got through that, or how you overcame it?
Yeah. So no, there's been multiple business failures. I have tried everything that you can imagine, from, um, Mary Kay to Premier Jewelry to, supplement lines, trying to figure something out beyond a career, right? And I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis along the way. And so there's been health problems and setbacks. And we had lots of losses, unfortunately. And so my first pregnancy was fantastic and it was great. And then my daughter was due on my son's third birthday and we didn't get to meet her. And so God started doing so much in my life at that point to really draw me back to a lot of what my purpose was and what I had for him. So, even in this business that we stepped into, one of the things that we teach is other businesses. And one of the things that we look for when we're taking on businesses is if there's an operator in place, because I don't want to buy a business to have another job, right? I want to buy a business that basically I can flip and turn around. And so, we were doing the same thing several years ago with this business. We were looking for an operator to put in place. And so we thought we had found one. We put the guy in place and we trusted him. But the problem is we didn't have a lot of systems and procedures in place at that point. And that was on us. That was our fault. And this is coming from someone who put systems and procedures in places for other businesses. So I knew better. I knew what I should have been doing, right? And I wasn't doing
look
it.
again.
Yes. And so we actually ended up losing almost $1 million on one project because of this guy and his negligence. And so we were in a place for for several months of not knowing what was going to happen, where we were going to be, what was going to happen with the business, were we going to end up in legal issues with it, like all this stuff. And that was all due to neglectful things, I will say, on our part, because we didn't have the right things in place. And so that is a non-negotiable for our clients, moving forward is, no, we have to have these systems and procedures in place so that you can be sure. And I always go back to like Mary Kay people or Premier Jewelry people or whatever. Like, I don't care what you're doing. If you're running something as a business, then you need to have systems and procedures in place, because the idea of it is you need to have an exit plan from the start. And if you're not having an exit plan from the start, then you're not going to be putting the systems and procedures in place for this business to run without you. And you want this business to be able to run without you. That's where the true freedom is. And so, I use the example of a Mary Kay person. If you want to become a Mary Kay director, then you're going to be doing a whole lot of office work. And if you would go ahead and be putting all of your stuff into writing, into a procedure right now of how you want thank you cards written, of how you want your skincare bag packed, for going to classes, of how you want things shipped, if you would go ahead and write all that down, then when you're ready to hire that office person at 20 hours a week to help you out, you're not going to spend 40 hours training her. You're just going to be able to pass it off and she's going to go, okay, I can read this and be able to do it. Or you could put your 12-year-old or 13-year-old kid in there doing it. And all they have to do is read the procedure and know that they can help you. And so, that's, you put procedures in your business and you put procedures in your home. And, I will say putting procedures in our home was a big leap for us, but it changed how my husband and I communicated in drastic ways, to where he doesn't even have to really say anymore, hey, how can I help out? Because that always, was a perfect conversation. How can I
Let me
help
count
out?
the ways.
Like, we have it written down. And if there are things that are, certain ways that have to be done, then it's written down and we know this. I will say in that I had to let go of a lot of me in that though, because some of it was just preferences that God had to say, whoa, Lori, this is not how we're doing this. This is just preferences. And you're trying to have control of this situation. And so we need to back up a little bit there and figure out why you're trying to have control there. And I was like, oh, okay, well, whatever. We'll talk about that.
Because it makes me feel secure and safe and happy.
Right.
My way is the right way. Don't you know that?
I operated
That's
that way a
awesome.
lot.
Right. And then, so as a mom and with your kids growing up, what would you say? Have you seen the impact of how you guys operate on maybe the way you see your kids handling situations, approaching things, or looking towards their future versus maybe other people that you run into and how they say, well, this is what we have going on with our kids.
Yeah. Well,
Not to compare in a bad way, but
yeah.
I'm just curious, like how has this affected your kids overall?
So, my 12-year-old is the one who's seen the most in the progressive journey, right? Like he remembers the mom staying up all night, working nights, that kind of stuff. And so, not to say that here's the thing is people will go, I'll send an email at like midnight to somebody or whatever. And they'll be like, oh, well, I thought, you didn't stay up all night to work. I'm like, I never said I didn't. I do what works with the rhythms of my life at that moment in
Mm-hmm.
time. So if a baby is up, I have a 2-year-old. So if he's up at night, and I need to send an email and I'm sitting there feeding him, I'm going to send you an email, but whatever.
Yeah.
But like, so my 12-year-old has seen the most and he is a proponent. Like if I could give him a platform to share this, he's like, everybody needs to know this Momprenista lifestyle. Everybody needs to do what my mom says because that puts like moms with their kids and that matters so much and Like he would be my biggest marketer if I would let him. But, so he's seen it and he knows and understands like how things have ebbed and flowed. He's seen, the arguments between my husband and I. Unfortunately, he's also seen the resolve between my husband and I, which I think is very important when kids see an argument to also be able to see that resolve because conflict exists in any relationship and they need to see it done in a healthy way. And so, it matters that, he's able to voice, hey, mom, I noticed this and now I noticed you and dad arguing about this, but now you're talking about it like this, right? So that's a whole other thing. We could talk about that for hours. But anyway, so in terms of like how they're seeing things, we run an entrepreneurial model homeschool, which means that they have to start a new business every semester. And so they get
from day one of schooling.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. We've always done that. And, it was lemonade stands and craft stuff and, whatever. My dad did woodworking with them, and that kind of stuff. And they were like going to sell these little deer or something. I don't know. But anyway, so they've had these, things that they've had to step into and do. They have to make a business plan for it. They have to make a marketing plan for it. They have to do everything. And so, they see how we schedule our lives. They see how we put things in place and they know, do I have time to run this business? How much time will this business take to run? And then added with all of my schoolwork and all of my chores that I have to do and the fun time that I want to have and the time with mom and dad I want to have, where does that fit in to my life? From my younger kids, my oldest one is the one having the biggest breakthrough with this right now. So for my younger kids, a lemonade stand out in the yard. Okay, cool. That takes a few hours, right? And I can do that. But it's also a way for us to spend time together. So they like that. But I think they will say the biggest thing that they like is we implemented date nights with our kids. And so we have a date night where I will take one kid, my husband will take one kid on Monday nights. And then the next week we switch and we take the other two. And then, we swap off. They also get a run where they both get mom and dad one-on-one. And both get mom and dad together, right?
Sure.
So they have a date night with both of us. And so then we are able to invest in them to get to do things that they enjoy doing and not just drag them along on our stuff that we're doing all the time.
All right, we're busy. You're coming with us.
Yes. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest things that's come out of the sync method for us is to be able to implement that. And, and my husband and I having a consistent date night as well. And we're able to plan family activities and things like that, make sure, that we're sitting down because we really do try to go by this. We want to spend X number of hours a week together as husband and wife. We want to spend X number of hours a week together with our kids. And we have X number of hours to be able to work and do other things, and we have X number of hours a week that we have to spend in our home, doing that or whatever. And so when you put all that into perspective, it really helps you look at how you're spending the time in your life and where you're spending it, and helps you prioritize the most important things, which is your family, and then how you're doing that. And it keeps you accountable for doing that. And so our kids are seeing that. And now, the oldest is starting to put that into practice in his life as he's figuring things out. And so it's fun to watch that start to take effect and trickle down. So it helps us get the kinks out too sometimes. So
I bet. If you haven't already added it to your Momprenista lineup, I know my head was like, ding, ding, ding. I want the course on how to do the entrepreneurial styles homeschool, because I homeschool my kids, like I mentioned, and they're 5 and 6, almost 7, 5.5 and almost 7. And I've, obviously they see me working from home, so they get a little bit of that. But, and I thought further down the road, we'll get something where they get a chance to get their feet into it. But like right away, like that needs to be something that you're teaching, because I'm sure other moms were like, whoa, that's really cool. I want to teach my kid that. So if that isn't already in the works, throw that in there.
Yeah. No, we've got it in the works. So,
oh, good. Yeah, that is awesome. So mom's listening in on here, and she's working a full-time job, doesn't really know, she wants something different. What would you say? Okay, first steps. This is probably what I would do. I know it's a big question too.
Yeah, no, that's a loaded question with a lot to it. But, and I think there are a lot of moms out there who are sitting there going, I have no clue how I could actually walk away from this position that I'm at right now. There's a fly in my face. You could actually how can I walk away from this position right now and still be able to provide for my family, because we depend on this income, and that terrifies me. Right. So the first thing that I do with women that want to sit down and figure this out is, and this is why the sync method matters, I will say that, what's your purpose is the first question. Where do you feel called? What makes your heart go, we all have that thing underlying. And so we have things where we work with women to actually, let's go back. Let's look at who you were as a child. Let's understand who you were carved out to be, and let's try to get you to that place in your life. And so once we figure out that purpose, then the next thing that we're going to look at is we're going to sync up your life. We're going to find what time you actually have with the current position that you're in, and where you can sacrifice things. And when I say every hour of my day is scheduled out now, every hour of my day is scheduled out, and I'm not on crack, which is what I thought the consultant was when he told me to do this, right? But every hour of my day is scheduled out. And so when you actually sit down and you start scheduling things out, and you start looking at the time that you have to actually be able to put towards something, it will help you choose and understand more about what you can actually step into. Because I think that's one of the first things that happens is somebody goes, oh, look at this over here. They say they made $1 million with it, and I'm going to run to that, and I'm going to try to do it. When they don't realize, and the laptop lifestyle is promoted and all that. And there is some, there's merit to that. At the same time, there's also hustle behind getting there. And so they get into something and they go, oh, well, I thought this was only an hour a day to do something, but it's actually taking 5 hours, and I don't know how to do that. When you get something dialed in, you can look and say, like, I know that I have 25 hours a week to work on businesses, and that's all of my businesses combined. And so then I divide that out. And so once you know how much time it takes you to spend the time with your husband that you want to spend the time at your job that you have, to spend the time with your kids, to spend the time doing laundry and dishes and anything. Like, once you know how much time it takes you to have that, then you can say, all right, I have these 5 extra hours. Where do I put them? How do I handle that? And then you pick something that gives you those 5 extra hours, and you pick a trajectory. Well, if I spend this amount of time to get here, this is where I'm going to go. And it's not hard. Once you just put it down and you see the direction that you can go in, you can get there faster than you ever realized, because you have a plan, and because you have people guiding you in the right direction with the right expectations in place rather than just launching into something because you saw a shiny object going, oh, cool, look at this. I'm going to jump into this. You have the right parameters in place to actually be able to walk forward and to do it. And that matters so much to the success of anything that you're going to step into. And so that's the first thing that I would say is know your purpose and know the time that you actually have to put toward something. And, a lot of people will go, oh, I've got 10 hours a week I can do. Well, then when you start digging in and figuring out what all you got going on, no, you actually only have about 7.3 hours a week to do something, or whatever it is. So let's get that dialed in and then move forward with what you can actually turn around and do.
That's awesome. So, Lori, where do mamas find you? What do you have going on? Where can they come to you?
So I'm on all platforms under Momprenista Life. And that's where you can find me with anything, and I had someone in a podcast, like they contacted the podcast director and said, hey, I want, I'm a small business and I want her to coach me through their other stuff. Just find me on Momprenista Life. You don't need to know my coaching business and all the other stuff. Like just find me on Momprenista Life and we can go wherever you need to go with it. But on all platforms, Momprenista Life. And if you, we have a playbook, and if you want that playbook, we can post a link down below in the description and you can get the playbook, which just walks you through on, what you need to do to actually step into things and crack this code. So that's the easiest way to find me is Momprenista Life everywhere.
Oh, that makes it easy. I like it. Yeah, and definitely let's put that link in because I'm sure that there's going to be some people that will want to crack the code. It's so intriguing. It's like, okay, well, what do I actually have? I just love the idea of the sync method and sometimes my husband will laugh at me because I'll have like the Google spreadsheet in front of me and I have everything blocked out and it's color coded because that makes me happy. He's like, what are you doing?
This takes that to a whole new level. I'm a spreadsheet nerd too, and this takes that to a whole new level, and it's beautiful.
I just needed to move it over to Canva so it's got glitter on it, and then and that'll make me super happy, right? But yeah, it's just like, well, if I know exactly what's going on, it actually allows me to have less stress in my day because I'm not worried about, oh, am I supposed to be doing this right now? It's like, no, this time is for this. I'm okay to be doing this at this time. So I totally 100% agree with that. And yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure a lot of people are like, I want to know too. So Lori, thank you so much for your time and for being obedient to your mission and your purpose and really just pushing through and pursuing, even in the times when I'm sure you were probably on your knees going, what the heck am I doing? Because I think we've all been there, right?
There's been a lot of those.
But pushing through nevertheless. I think that's always the key is, okay, you can do that and then get back up and push through and keep going and finding those models and digging further and figuring out, okay, what's really going to work for me, and then putting it together in a way that other people can get relief from it too. So it's not just, oh, this worked for me. It's, oh, okay, let me help you too. So thank you so much for being that person and for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you for allowing me.
Yeah, of course. I love it. I love learning. To me, it's just, there's someone has some sort of piece of information that is going to change my life. And the way we find it is just by talking and having these amazing conversations and hearing, well, what have you put into your life that's working for you? And even if it's just a little tweak on something you're already doing, sometimes I think, it was Tony Robbins who said, you just need a 2 millimeter difference between good and great, or great and outstanding. And we think it has to be these huge changes in our life, and it doesn't. It's just 2 millimeters and it completely changes the direction of your life. So I feel like that's what you've just given to everybody listening today, and myself included. So thank you. Yeah. So with that, make sure you check out the show notes. Go and get that booklet or the guide booklet.
It's a playbook. It's a playbook.
Okay. Yeah. Get the playbook. I know. Well, I like it because then it's playful. It's one of my top values. So I'm in with that. But make sure that you get the playbook, that you look up Lori on Momprenista Life. You can find her, like she said, anywhere. I think you're going to get a ton of value out of that. Thank you for spending your time with us and listening to this and investing in your growth and developing who you are, because you are so worth it. You and your family is worth having the best version of you. So I thank you for being here. Of course, Share this, like this, drop us a comment. Let us know what was the piece of information that really got to you, because I would love to hear that. And I'm sure Lori would as well. In the meanwhile, I look forward to talking to you next week. So until then, make it fun. Woo! Make it so fun that we're shaking the camera here. Make it rich, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.